All right, welcome to Marketing Shop Talk. I'm your co-host Garrett Gross,
And I'm Tim Becker.
and today we're going to talk about a really cool book, Growth Hacker Marketing.
Growth Hacker
Right,
Marketing.
that's the one we read.
Yeah.
And who wrote it? Ryan Holiday. he wrote another book. I kind of want to try. It says best-selling author of Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Yeah.
That sounds hilarious. I think we'll have to read that one sometime.
Definitely check into it.
So, not a big book.
No.
What is it, like 100 and some pages with the actual book, and then there's like forward and after.
A couple appendixes at the back so that it adds a little page count to it.
Right. But the thing that he talked about in there, he kept it short very specifically. That he said he worked really hard to keep everything as short and concise as possible. Like,
Yeah, and I appreciate that in books because sometimes I think that they're overly wordy. You know, they try to. I think everybody tries to make like a 220-page book.
yeah.
And they have to put a lot of fluff in there, which is either repetitive or to kind of support their thesis, I guess.
Have you ever read The Princess Bride?
No, I have not.
Oh,
I love the movie though.
Oh, the movie's great too. No, in the book he totally makes fun of authors that do that.
Oh,
It's
really?
like fluff, yeah.
By putting a bunch. How many pages is that book?
I don't remember how many pages it is, but he writes it as so it's kind of funny. So the book is written as if he didn't write the book. He's just abridging the original.
Oh, really?
But he's not. It's the original. And so he goes on and on about how the original author wrote this big long thing, this huge description of so-and-so's dress, and it was like 3 pages long. And in the book, he's like, so we're just going to skip that and just... Anyway, it's funny. Yeah, if you ever read Princess Bride, read it. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I do appreciate though Ryan Holiday in this book. He even talks about at the beginning, in the introduction, that he wants to have just focus on the fundamentals of growth hacker marketing, so that you have the ideas of it, but it's not because it's such an innovative way of looking at marketing that I think you could get down a few rabbit holes without really intending to when you're trying to write about it. So it makes sense that it's concise in that way.
Oh yeah, totally. So what is growth hacker marketing?
Well, I liked it that he defined it as like the idea of a self-perpetuating marketing machine. Because as a marketer, that's what you want, right? It's something that you kind of can get started. So you just like a lawnmower, just running. And sometimes it takes a lot of work. And if you can't get it started right away, it wears you out. You got to take a break. At least I do.
Exactly. Go get some lemonade.
Yeah. Or you could have a lawnmower like mine that once you stop it, it never starts again until the next day.
Oh, those are the best.
Yeah. But that idea of having something that's self-perpetuated, and that it keeps going and grows as your business grows. Mm-hmm. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think the way that Ryan Holiday presented it was really good and made it really clear about having it grow with the business and like hack your way into growing it through marketing. Yeah. You did a good job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So so he has it in steps, not really chapters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So step 1 begins with product market fit. And I've taken a few classes, and that is totally right. Like you got to figure out where your product fits in its niche, so you can really head dive into it. Is that the right term? Head dive.
Yeah, something like that.
So you can say no. It's okay. But you got that's the number one.
Dive head first.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah. So, but I mean, you got to do that, or you'll have no direction.
Yeah, and this is what's kind of unique about the idea of growth hacking is the idea that you have a product that you manipulate to fit the market. So you have, I mean, it's the idea of using the market to develop the product, which I think is that's the novel thing about growth hacking, is the idea that you actually can develop the product while you're still trying to market to it. So you can kind of define what the product is by the market you're trying to get to.
Yeah, that's true. If the last book we read, Duct Tape Marketing, you kind of talked about that a little bit. It's where you come out with the initial product. I think you use diapers. Well,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, because they only had one size.
Yeah,
and
Huggies made of diapers, only one size. It kind of sucked. But then they took the revenue they made and continued to improve it.
Yeah.
And now we have diapers that change colors, so you know when to change.
That's impressive.
I know, right?
Now they fit and change colors. Man. I think diapers always change colors. It's
I know.
Is it on the outside or the inside?
Both. Anyway, though, so yeah, I mean, that's totally true, and both these authors agree, and I agree, and you agree, and I think everybody agrees that that's really important.
Yeah, and I think that this kind of brings in the idea that growth hacking is. It would be nice to be able to apply to every product, but I think it really lends itself to digital products that are easily changed. And not that all digital products are easily changed, but you kind of get the idea from the the rule of numbers. So the more people you have using your product, the more feedback you can get, which emphasizes that how important feedback is. Because if people aren't using your product, I think the one product that he talks about is Instagram in there.
Yeah.
So it starts out as a local, I can't remember the name of it.
It was like this local little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it had something to do with culinary stuff. But they noticed that people were only using it, or the majority of people were using it for their photos and the filters.
Yeah, the filters, and you can change. Yeah, that's what people are using it.
Yeah, so then once they realized that that's what the people were using it for, they kind of changed the product completely and turned it into what it is today, which, it talks about the transaction between Instagram and Facebook and how much Facebook bought Instagram for.
Yeah, isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing you want to happen, right? You have this good idea, and the big company's like, we want to buy this for $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes to show that if you come up with an idea, do not be afraid to change it, because what you have is a good idea, but if you can see it could be this much better by seeing what other people are doing with it. Don't be afraid to kind of let your baby grow and develop and get out of diapers.
Yeah. Get away from diapers.
That's right. Yeah. So
I think too, like the idea is if you have a product like that you can adjust and change. Maybe you, instead of trying to make it more complex by adding features, maybe you pick the features, the top 3 features, and you focus on those things. Or you can take the top 3 features and make 3 completely different products.
Yeah.
Because that's there's I can't remember the name of the company. 37 Signals with Basecamp. It's a project management software that runs online and things, and I think that they had made several different. They added some features to it, but originally made it just for project management. And so once they realized that they started adding too much to it, I think they broke it down into several other programs. But then they realized that their core was Basecamp, so they either canceled the subscriptions to or sold off the other parts of it and just focused on that one core product. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely makes it easier marketing something that has less features, I think, because you can be the best at one thing compared to trying to compete with everybody.
Oh yeah. So I got an example of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
Working in the bike industry. There was this particular brand. I'm not going to say who it was, but they had like a bike for everything, and then not only did they have a bike for everything, but they had like different grades of carbon in all of those bikes, and then they had different grades of aluminum, and they had this and they had that and I hated them. They made an okay bike. Didn't really like them that way either, but. The thing that I hated about them is there was just so much to know that I sold the other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they had a bike for everything. It was just too much, and to keep this and that and that and this all straight. It made it really complex, and therefore I did not sell them.
Yeah.
So.
That's an interesting, puzzle to figure out. Is if you're a growing company, you want to offer, something for everybody, but how do you keep that core going? How do you keep that?
Well, I mean, there's that want to service everybody, but if you market to everybody, you're not going to sell to anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Because now you're too generic. And in
Yeah.
fact, I was telling you earlier about the Facebook ad managers.
Mm-hmm.
There's like this little dial in there, so you'll go through and you'll select your target market. And I want to run this ad for this thing, and find these people and there's just like this little dial that's like, you're too generic, It's like over here, and then as you get more specific.
Why are you pointing at me when you say that?
And no reason.
Oh man.
But there's this little dial that moves back and forth, and then as you get more specific, then it's like, congratulations, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, you got to be specific and get rid of that sell to everybody mentality, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of business owners, I think we've talked about this in the past, though, a lot of business owners they feel that if they can sell to everybody, they have a larger pool of people to pull money from, right? To sell to, which, in fact is the opposite of that happens, is your message gets watered down, nobody really knows what you do, and nobody comes to you. So
right, yeah. Exactly. I guess this would be like an unlimited supply of like cheap chicken nuggets versus like one like really good steak.
There you go.
I don't know if that's a good example, but that's what I'm going to use.
Okay.
But yeah, you got. I guess where I was going with that is you want to find the quality customer, not the quantity customer, because quantity is going to give you a lot of headache. Like we read in Marketing Superstar about firing some of your customers, the ones that are unproductive or just a hassle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you got to find the good ones, and he talks about that in Growth Hacker Marketing too, about finding the right customer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's unique the idea of making your products fit to the audience that's, raving about you.
Yes, exactly. Uh-huh. Sell to your friends, not your enemies, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So another thing about selling too, I wanted to talk about this because I thought it was really interesting. On page 51, it talks about MySpace. Which did you ever use MySpace? Probably not.
No, it was. I got into internet stuff right after the MySpace phase.
MySpace thing. Okay, so like my friends had MySpace and blah blah blah. I had an account, but I like never used it. But
sure. I'm gonna go search for you now.
All right. Try to find me. So about selling to people. So MySpace got like really big, really fast, and it talks in Growth Hacker Marketing here that like the owners or the guy that created it, whatever, he like started getting greedy, and so he started to make like all these ads before you could log in. So you go to MySpace, you watch this ad, and then you got to watch another ad, and then another ad, and then you could log in and do your thing. Or maybe it wasn't quite in that order, but it was cumbersome to just get into your account. And people started to get kind of frustrated with that. And so they just started to leave and go to Facebook. Because Facebook was being really innovative. And I remember when I was friends with my wife. So we were friends, and then we dated, and then we got married. So when we were friends, she
It's a good way to start a relationship.
I know, right? In case you're wondering how the process goes.
Dating advice.
I know.
Marketing Shop Talk.
That's right. So she started asked me if I had a Facebook account. I'm like, no. And she's like, she'd get one. So I got one. And here I am, married with 2 kids.
So you didn't post to MySpace, but you did post to Facebook.
Yeah,
right?
I did occasionally, here and there. But anyway, where was I going with this?
Sorry.
Somewhere. I was going. I was going somewhere, but I guess I'll say that I mean, when you're trying to sell, it's important to not try to sell to everybody, but also to track what your customers like and don't like. What we were saying earlier, and if MySpace would have paid attention to that and I don't know, changed how they got their income, do something, they could have saved themselves.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And like nobody uses MySpace anymore.
Yeah, I think one of the important things that Ryan Holiday points out in the book, though, is this idea of growth hacker marketing is so analytic based that, I mean, you're basically, you try something, test it, and then you see what the results are, and then you modify it, and then you modify something else. You make little slight changes and see incremental growth initially, but then eventually you'll hit something that becomes exponential. So the idea that those are the little growth hacks that you're going to try out, and he talks about a lot about the idea of experimenting with things that you just never know what the combination is going to be to make it work. But the thing is with this growth hacking is that you actually are paying attention to the statistics, you're paying attention to the analytics,
right?
You're paying attention to the numbers, which I think some of the traditional marketing has kind of gotten away from. There are a lot of direct marketers that are, from a few decades ago that I think that they really, appreciated the idea of making sure that advertising works. But then we had this whole era of image ads and branding, that doesn't really benefit the company directly, but it was more of this is kind of who we are. We want you to kind of adopt us and be part of our family of people that support our company, but that never really, sold specific products. Whereas the direct marketing from decades ago really focused on that. And I think that this kind of gets back to that idea of making sure your advertising works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to say this too. I was watching a webinar, and they talked about that same thing, like trying different things. Mm-hmm. So this marketer was working with a client, and the marketer told the client, hey, post a video, I don't know, every day, every week, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And monitor the videos, and we could start building your business that way.
Yeah.
And he told him to post all kinds of different things.
Yeah, try stuff out.
Yeah, to try stuff out. But in the beginning, this person was just posting videos a little different, but more or less the same.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't working, so the marketer was like, "Yeah, try something else." And so he did. The guy decided to do something completely different. I can't remember what the business was, but he did this thing with like fruit that people found super interesting. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, he was selling the same thing, but he just changed the context, and it just like blew up. Like he got tons of followers. I wish I could remember more specifics, but I remember that he just tried a bunch of things that didn't work, and then for whatever reason he used fruit and it worked.
Yeah.
So that goes into what you're saying. You don't really know what it's going to be until you try it.
So almost like you're searching for the correct trigger to set it off.
Right.
Like that's the idea that I see with it. So, which then goes. So step 2 is the idea of finding your growth hack. Find those things that you can adjust, that you can test, that you can, try out, and then step 3 is go viral, which I think is kind of interesting because I hear a lot of times in marketing in the past that going viral is kind of an accidental thing. It's like there's no intention behind it. It's just kind of happens, which he kind of dispels that and says, no, you can program it a little bit. You can. Yeah,
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, but it all has to do with the idea of tracking your analytics and understanding what's going on. I mean, I guess the other thing about it too is you have. He talks, about Ryan Holiday talks about it that this is kind of, startups where obviously there's programmers working on these digital products already, and they kind of take that analytical mind that they use for programming and apply it into their marketing, compared to having ad agency type mindsets like we just talked about, and or designers trying to apply their aspect of how marketing should work.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tests me a little bit being a designer.
I know.
But I do appreciate marketing that works.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, it's just it's kind of this. I mean, get an idea, like we were saying. Begin with your product to make sure it fits the market, and then it's kind of a trial and error thing. I mean, there are things that are more likely to work than others.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some skeletons that you can follow that you're more likely to be successful. But at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a trial and error thing.
Yeah.
And just figuring it out. Really.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think about the idea of if you approached a company as a marketing consultant, or someone that's trying to help a business with their marketing, how would you approach them in a way that you would say, hey, we're going to experiment with your money?
I know, right? I want you to pay me $5,000 on a gamble.
But it's interesting because you think about what they already spend in advertising, and if you could actually figure out a formula that would work for them, how important that would be. How valuable would that be to a company? Would they be willing to invest $5, $10, $15, $20,000?
Right. And I don't think that would necessarily take a lot of time or a lot of headache. I mean, you could just look at their products, see how their products sell for this much, and you can kind of guess.
Yeah.
Like if they sell widgets for $10 and their budget isn't going to be as much as a doctor that sells heart surgeries. So you can kind of figure it out a little bit, but
yeah, and the more experience you get with it, obviously, the easier it is to kind of to get a better starting point.
Right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. But interesting. Great book. Let's see here. Did you read the afterword?
You've been borrowing the book for so long now. I don't know if I'd have to revisit it.
I have to admit, I got busy with the kids and I didn't read it. But not that I didn't want to. Certainly not that I didn't want to. I did dive into it a little bit, and the afterword is kind of like an update.
Yeah, he kind of explains the process that he's gone through with his book.
Right.
So I think it's great to kind of hear him actually apply what he's teaching.
What he said in the book, yeah. And that's kind of what the afterword said. Like I said, I didn't finish the afterword, but that's basically what it said. And it was just really interesting. He's like, hey, I've preached all these ideas, and oh, by the way, I implemented all those ideas, and I'm proving it because you've got the book in your hand right now.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. I found Ryan Holiday to be quite clever. Like he wasn't comical in his writing, but it just he kept everything short, concise. I really appreciated it because it can be hard to read a book when you're trying to watch kids and do your business and blah 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 blah. So I thought it was I think out of the books we've read so far, that this one was kind of my favorite. I don't know. I mean, all of them have been good, but
yeah, I like that it approached marketing from a different perspective for me, which kind of opened my eyes to some experiments that I could try out. So it's been very helpful.
Yeah, totally. I'm excited to try some of the stuff in there and see how it goes.
Definitely.
Cool. So a shorter book tonight, a little bit of a shorter podcast, but thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun. We're probably going to miss next week because both Tim and I are a little busy, but we'll get another one of these podcasts up as soon as we can. And if you have any questions, comments, please, like, subscribe. I guess it's kind of a rule. You have to say that because
if you don't tell them, then they don't know to do it.
That's right.
Is that true?
That's all the YouTube channels say that.
Maybe we should test it.
We should. We'll have to figure out a way to test that.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we've said it. In our 2 other podcasts, we haven't, and we'll see which one gets more likes and subscribers.
There you go.
Cool. Well, again, I'm Garrett.
And I'm Tim.
Thanks for joining us.